So, Mr. Speaker, in the status quo, we can see that many authors do not use pseudonyms. As a result of this, some authors who actually have their own opinions related to religions, politics, they face persecution, Mr. Speaker, especially in areas with strong beliefs against like one religion or one political side. So many authors do feel burdened of what to write and what to not write, right? So this creates a toxic environment in which authors only pursue what to write about what fits the actual societal norms, right? And that's not what we want because we support free speech. As a result of this, an echo chamber, an environment in which you only hear what you want to hear is created, right? So basically, an echo chamber is basically when you're a conservative and you only look at conservative news, you only look at conservative like newspapers, right? And that's not what we want. We want better political discourse. As a preemptive, we can say that the mistrust in like the status quo between authors because of the pseudonyms won't happen because there are already labels that show which books are trustworthy to trust and official or not. Okay, so with that said, moving on to our arguments. First, on the principle, pseudonyms will allow authors to write about topics more freely, to write their opinions without being afraid of being tracked down by their readers, right? There are many cases in the past where people with controversial political views and religious views actually got attacked by people who didn't support their view. Authors are being constricted of what they can actually write about, and today's society seems to have free speech, but it actually doesn't because there is social pressure that forces these authors to change what they write about. So what does the societal pressure look like? Let's say that you're an extremely liberal country and your views are conservative, right? You won't be able to write about your views because of the societal standards in that area, and you'll be rejected from society, okay? So social opinion plays a huge role in like discourse, and that's not what we want, but freedom of speech is being violated in the status quo right now. It creates a chilling effect in which you're not sure whether to write something or not because you are afraid of the public opinion. Okay, third point here on the safety of the authors. If people just know the actual names of people, it's easier to invade their privacy, right? The vulnerability of the authors are increasing in the status quo. Popularity of the media is increasing, and in parallel motion, the vulnerability of the authors is also increasing, right? We saw an example of how in France, cartoon designers got killed by like Muslim terrorists, and we say that our side promotes the best author security, okay? Second argument on better societal pluralism and discourse, okay? People will talk more freely about their opinion in our side because more flexibility of the author's liturgical content because there's zero pressure and yeah. So second point here, there's a more diverse point of views. The benefits here is that this makes people more knowledgeable and they get to know about what other people may actually think, and we want people to have an overall like wider view of like society instead of like one straight view on like what you actually want to hear, right? So this encourages discourse. When people express their true political opinions, it can prove as very healthy environment for people who read, to discuss, and share their opinions, right? Our side eradicates this narrative that in the media, you should comply with herd mentality of the region that you actually live in. Because why? There's more active and critical discourse and helps society find unique solutions to problems. For example, let's say you're living in a conservative country and you have very liberalist views, but when you're using a pseudonym, you can actually post what you think, and you won't have to get worried about like being attacked by the people in the media because like your name is actually being hidden from the public, right? So a last point here is on the economic benefits that this world brings to us. Because people are led to engage more freely in these areas such as politics and religion, people will buy and sell these books more. Why? Okay, so 3 points of mechanism. Authors will be inspired to write more due to better societal pluralism and less invasion of privacy, okay? And more books inevitably leads to more people reading them, okay? And because people will become more knowledgeable, we think that people will read more books and the entire literature economy will actually strive. This is important because this will encourage new writers to start writing about their own opinions as well, creating an overall society where you can write freely about your opinions without being scared. Like, what if this guy actually comes to me? What if this person finds me? Okay? So the counterfactual here is that we create a world in which there is more active and critical discourse and where the economy benefits from books are significantly higher. Proud to propose.
The purpose of literature as a whole should be sharing meaning and thought widely through words, right? The counterfactual is that we support a status quo where authors can choose whether to keep their names or to provide themselves with another name. Most authors will use their own name and more information will be provided later. We simply leave this upon their own behalf because this is not, we don't see nor acknowledge any notable benefits coming from the government side. Books, by the way, include both paperbacks and online books. Whether or not our goal should make literature more valuable or empowered. The metrics is that we should judge on is how good and prominent books are made and who preserves the real purpose of literature and who respects the right of the authors, right? Firstly, rebuttals. Number one, firstly, the idea of persecution is not the problem of pseudonyms, but rather the country on saying controversial things, and they must be aware of such damage, right? Rather than controversy, when pseudonyms are used, people will be more radical in representing their political viewpoints and what the side government. This is what the side government looks like. Furthermore, we don't stop them from using pseudonyms, so I don't think this is a mutually exclusive harm to our side. But most importantly, social media exists, right? Further explanation on the arguments. The vulnerability they say is not actually mutually exclusive to our side. What about public figures or even politicians? This is a harm for both sides, right? Military first argument, the undermines of power literature. 2 points. Number one, why should we keep the status quo? Authors in the status quo and from the past have many incentives to become an author, right? This is mainly because of fame and money. This is likely because authors themselves need fame to off their books, share their thoughts and money, and live off a living, right? We think that this is why individuals choose to become authors in the status quo, right? Because the counterfactual does not have any of these incentives, it is likely that the people who become authors will be the minority. But most importantly, we're not trying to ban the usage of pseudonyms names or nor trying to oppress these people into using their real names. But we will not encourage these people to use pseudonyms instead of their real names, right? Consider how the status quo is different from social media. There are social media, including Instagram, Facebook, that exist for the purpose of anonymity, meaning there's enough free space for the authors to freely converse. Secondly, there's no benefit. There's no exclusive benefit on the government side. We don't understand the need of this. Opinion supports the individual choice. Pseudonym names conceal people's real identity, right? If they really want to do this, they can, but they don't have to. This is why we respect. There is a minimal benefit. And in fact, doing this simply guaranteeing anonymity and securing something that author may or may not want. Enforcing this is an infringement and violation of personal rights. The individual has the autonomy to choose or select whether a name or fake name is going on the book. We don't see any exclusive benefit when they have the choice. If they want to make controversial things, then they can actually use pseudonyms, right? Inside, like, for example, conservative countries. Argument 2, move on to the second argument, lack of burden and incentive for the authors. 2 points. Number 1, lack of burden on accuracy. We see that when pseudonym names are enforced, they lose the incentive. But why would books not be in a quote-unquote anonymous, considering how society views as a credible source of books as a credible source of information where students can find accurate information to write reports? And if so, pseudonyms authors will not take accountability on such quote-unquote false information. This equals to they're simply discouraged as they're not receive any public backlash for delivering and providing wrong information. The reason why only social media is exclusive on creating anonymity is because they have natural fast check and balance on the audience. People can engage easily, but for books, it is harder to create direct engagements. We cannot change the information written on the books just due to citizens' opinion, but in social media, this check and balance is actually possible. But even if people become so charitable, instead that the publishing company will be checking on these books on their accuracy, we see that the publishing company has too much work to check every single information written on this book. And there also exists individual publishing book, which it makes it much harder to check accuracy, right? Analysis 2, loss of empowerment. Under the government rule, authors who publish academic texts, often a researcher or a professor, they don't have the incentive like fame and money, because even if your first book sells on, no one will know that you made this book, right? Let's say, for example, a professor studies biology for 30 years. They write a book about his or her profound study on cell duplication. They cannot get credit. They cannot get credit by this book because no one knows that this person wrote it. This is so unfair, Judge. The fame of the professional or the researcher often depend on the published books and how accurate it is. When it suddenly becomes all of pseudonymous names and authors, it fails to incentivize these professors to provide accurate and certain information to continue their research, Judge. Therefore, so proud to oppose. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition is stating a world in which the famous authors thrive when the people who are not famous suffer from the people ignoring their ideas and they don't even have a chance at standing in the world. Okay, before I move on to my arguments, I would like to rebut a few things mentioned by the opposition. First, they mentioned about how it's authors' fault that they talk about their radical views, and authors should be cautious. But because of this narrative, the authors of these books are going to get prosecuted. Do you think this is good, Mr. Speaker? Also, they talked about lack of incentive. So we actually have a better incentive because you can write about what you actually want. Also, how is our case not incentivizing these people? Because even if they have pseudonyms, then they still can get credit, because it's not that, oh, I'm a fan, I'm gonna give you money and stuff. It's not that. It's praising, oh, you're a very good writer. This is the incentive that most authors work on, and it's what them motivates to write more. So based on this, there is no need that we don't it doesn't make sense that we don't have incentive for the authors to work. Basically, authors don't even make money, so not authors don't make a lot of money normally. Therefore, most authors write because they want to share their thoughts. Also, most of the time, authors have two jobs. So basically, if you're a doctor, you can write a book about what your research is about. If you're an economist, you can write about what your research about and how the world should be. These people are incentivized in either way, and also incentivized in the world that we are proposing because they can share their thoughts freely. Also, they talked about false information, so this literally contradicts their own case because they gave the choice to use pseudonyms. So why would so in their case, it doesn't solve the question. It doesn't solve the problem of people spreading false information in books, because why would they use their real names if they want to spread false information? They will use their fake names as the government as the opposition policy is. Okay, so now moving on to my argument, the third argument, which is that it gives equal opportunities for everyone. Normally, people buy books that are written by famous authors. Because of this, it is very hard for new authors to write new books, no matter how well they wrote it. An example of this is Moses. So he proposed the ideology that people should that the world is going to go extinct soon in the 1700s. In the 1800s, many people hated him because of his social location and what he and his political thoughts. They didn't care about the information written in that book, and then therefore his ideology didn't spread to enough people. If we make all authors pseudonymous, we will be able to solve this system and give every person a new chance to write a book and give their own ideology. This will lead to equality in the literature market, and we'll be able to maximize the benefits we gave in the second arguments. Also, this doesn't work in the opposite case because the rich and the famous people will still use their name. Therefore, the poor people wouldn't even have a chance. So also, people will be able to focus on content more because there is no need. There are no real names of the authors. This will lead to more diverse information, and we'll be able to develop literature in areas such as politics, where people are usually careful when talking about it. Because of this, writers will be incentivized to write more because they know that they have equal opportunities to succeed, right? In the status quo, people aren't incentivized because you know that the more famous authors will get all the credit. Judge, we believe that this system could solve the status quo where the authors use their own names in a world in which many people barely have a chance and a place to stand in the literature world. We as government are trying to solve this problem by making authors pseudonymous and giving them an equal opportunity. Because of these reasons, we take this debate home and we take the moral high ground. Thank you for listening, and we are very proud to propose. Thank you for listening.
Honorable educator, we don't understand how government side argues this motion without any characterization, counterfactual, or framing that they provide in today's debate. Therefore, we can only assume now team government's world will look like certain kind of things because team government side did not fulfill their responsibility, which is why team government side cannot prevail in today's debate. Therefore, my rebuttals would be based on how we think team government's world would look like. Now, moving on to rebuttals. So firstly, before moving on, we give them a choice to choose between pseudonymous and revealing their identity in our world. But as we have mentioned in our counterfactual, that most of the times these authors obviously would choose to show their real names because they would like these certain kind of things like fame, which they would get from an author. So most of the times, these authors would not be anonymous. Now, moving on, they say that it's difficult to talk about controversial topics in society and discourse. 3 layers of analysis why this is untrue. First of all, this is also likely on team government because publishing companies would still exist. This is true and likely because there is no counterfactual or model provided by them. Therefore, we can only assume that this is the case. We think that these publishing companies will filter informations whether or not they're anonymous and will prioritize books that are not controversial. Now, this means that discourse also cannot be achieved on team government side. Decline. Now, secondly, even if team government comes and says that they'll publish books individually, we think there are better alternatives on our side anyways. Now, team government side also cannot say that this is a benefit, and this is true because when authors start to talk about controversial topics, this will make it easier to escalate these kind of ideologies into radical ideologies. This is likely because there are no checks and balances that can be made under team government's world if they're publishing this individually. Now, what this leads to is books like Mein Kampf by Hitler coming out or other radical ideologies, which is quite harmful and not beneficial. So therefore, what this will lead to is that say that their impact is quite large. This will just lead to more harm in their society. Now, this is likely because, as again, discourse without any regulations will lead to radical ideologies, and this is mentioned from LO, so we really want adequate rebuttals from government whip on this rebuttal. Now, lastly, we think that there are better existing alternatives like social media, where we already mentioned. Now, this is true because social media has regulations that disregard racial slurs or harmful informations that are obviously wrong, and individuals can have more free opportunities to do debates on posts, and it's far more easier to filter out harmful information. Now, false information also can be far better disregarded on social media because there are multiple citizens who will disregard this kind of information and tell that these kind of things are untrue. So when we talk about discourse and controversial topics, we know that our role takes a high ground. We know our role takes the high ground. Now, moving on to the next rebuttal, unequal authors leading to economic benefits. Now, this is what government side tries to talk about this. We think it is not equal opportunities on government side. It is just random opportunities because you cannot make a reputation on after what you book where you wrote. It is really hard to advertise certain kind of things that you do, which is quite harmful because you can't really make a reputation anymore. But nextly, we think that untrue because leader of opposition already mentioned that less people become an author as a whole because fame is harder to achieve and fame is incentive for people to become authors. Now, this means that less people will become authors, leading to the market of literature decreasing as a whole, which will lead to less people buying, which is a net harm as a whole to the whole market of literature. So we really don't think that these equal authors will lead to equal benefits. So these kind of points are untrue. Now, moving on to my extension on pseudonymous writers go against the purpose of literature. So the underlying premise of this argument is that the purpose of literature is to share meaning and thoughts through words and sentences. Now, the analysis is that team government makes it extremely difficult for authors to make extremely successful books that hold a lot of meaning because this was already mentioned by leader opposition that authors really don't have incentives anymore. Now, because this wasn't properly attacked from team government, this point still stands. Now, with that in mind, we think that this directly correlates to the fact that there'll be less prominent authors and books on team government's world, because not only that this undermines the purpose of literature, team government's world lessens the impact that literature holds on our minds, which makes it quite difficult to widely spread good and deep ideologies that only books can achieve. The impact is that deep, meaningful thoughts can be only achieved through literature, which is impactful. Now, this is exclusive from other alternatives like social media, because deep thoughts can be only shared because content on social media is quite widespread and not deep, and does not allow long thoughts that are over 300 pages. So these kind of things can be only achieved by books. Now, lastly, on the weighing, we take the comparative advantage because we preserve the true meaning of literature and better spread deep meaning and thoughts which are valuable. And this argument is game winning because the burden set by a leader of opposition on our side is to preserve the true meaning of literature, which is mutually exclusive only on team opposition, which is why our side prevails by a large margin in the end of the day. For the reason, thoughts are closed. Thank you.
So we push the point here that there is more incentive for writers to write if they know they have a fair chance because they are purely judged by the merit of their creative work. Mr. Speaker, imagine a world where you know all the authors' names. People will definitely be tempted to search up people. And there are some individuals that steal and invade information of these individuals. Do you think just because you have written a book, individuals deserve this treatment? We think it's inevitable that many authors will go through the severe persecution and depression and will feel burdened due to this opposition bench's stance. So why is this the case? There are two questions. We'll explain why that's the case. So firstly, which side better sanctions the author's privacy? In our principal argument, we have clearly stated that the status quo is invading and harming the privacy of these people. We think that the social impact and the spread of media will easily make authors more vulnerable, as our Prime Minister has stated. In addition, the LU kindly gives us an argument for us here, talking about the social media and platform they talked about us. We will flip this argument. We think that the social media platform is actually beneficial for our model. We challenge opposition. Social media platforms, SNS, these all have anonymous user tools. Do you know why these exist? It's for privacy. See, even Mark Zuckerberg and Kevin Systrom knows that in the counterfactual, where there are no anonymous tools, it's easier for people to disturb privacy of these individuals. More analysis on this, Mr. Speaker. Since media today is exponentially large and some people do find a way to stalk or hack into celebrities' Instagram accounts, we think that leaving authors with the real names increases the danger of privacy invasion. Why do we win this clash? Firstly, we effectively deliver in our first principle argument that there will be an invasion of privacy no matter what. Even if the opposition somehow successfully argues that people would not intentionally stalk or invade these people, we think that the media platform makes the people even more vulnerable. Secondly, we think that the only way opposition can actually win this clash is by proving that there are no harms to the authors, or else their stance would just be neglecting these authors. We think that no matter what, we successfully proved to the opposition that privacy invasion will occur. Media and greedy individuals are against them. And we think to safeguard authors from this vulnerability, there's only one way. We have to make them use pseudonyms. To provide further analysis on this, under social contracts, governments have a legal obligation to be committed to ensure safety to all these individuals. Opposition stance goes against this. Proud to propose. In the status quo, big name monopolizes the market, and even publishers don't like to take risks with new writers. This leads to less innovation and less development. It also means big writers get unfair advantage in coverage and platforms. We democratize this. This means better quality of art for all readers and more diversity. Now we all read the same content due to lack of diversity and because so concentrated on big authors. As a result, we take the high ground here, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, which side provides better benefits to the people more under this motion? We have clear points. Some issue nowadays is that we have one-sided views and sometimes the majority of tyranny of the majority occur. Many times authors feel pressure to go against the majority. For example, let's say this person had a Buddhist belief, but because many people support Christianity and hate speech against Buddhism, this person couldn't write it. But in the counterfactual of this motion, we effectively solve this. Impact 1, we bring about better pluralism. People have a variety of views to choose from. Impact 2, we make people more knowledgeable. While on the opposition, Mr. Speaker, they only argue freedom of choice, and we say yes, we accept this argument. However, we think this is better achieved on our side. We bite the bullet here. Why is this the case? We think firstly that we give limited freedom of choice. It's the same with letting people commit suicide on their side. Of course, people will have the freedom to commit suicide, but we don't allow that, right? Why don't we? It's because of social contract, Mr. Speaker. This is so important in this debate we uphold here. Under social contract, we are helping authors to have their freedom to work under a pseudonym where they will no longer have, they will have more freedom to work whatsoever. If some individuals do use their own names, they would have the freedom to choose so, but they wouldn't have the freedom to work as an author. Mechanism on this, as I told you, the pressure people go through is extreme. Why do we win this clash? We win this clash because we honestly think we have clear points. Not only do we have economic benefits, we successfully support the author and keep their privacy. Our DPM already told you that we incentivize better writing because we know that they have equal opportunities to succeed. There still has been no engagement on this point. We also provide economic benefits, as I told you, and when the opposition's leader of opposition says that here that authors will be more successful with their own names, we think the same thing will be achieved on our side. So we think this rebuttal is not valid. As a result, we take this debate home, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, and proud to propose.
Honorable duty here, we think side government functions under the premise that all authors want anonymity, that all authors want to remain unknown, that all authors will publish radical opinion on politics, religion, and they want to be protected. A paid government doesn't provide a clear counterfactual nor a model, and this was pushed from the DLO, yet government with us no response, which is why team government cannot prevail at the end of the day. Now, directly moving on to my first slide, anonymity versus accountability. They value the power of anonymity. They claim others with strong political or religious opinions will be severely prosecuted. We think this is not enough notable benefit. The authors should be aware of the consequences and results of them publishing controversial opinions. But not only that, if they publish books without being even aware of the possible backlash, this further ensures that government side will have an overflowing amount of unaccountable and irresponsible authors who will just publish radical opinions whenever they want because they know that they are protected. But not only that, they are allowed to publish radical because no one is to say something like that. And we think social media exists for that very reason. Anonymity can be pursued there. And if they really want anonymity in books, they can do so. But we don't really see a reason why we need to enforce this. And that's very much of the fact because not all authors want their name to be protected. Not all authors want to have a shield protecting them from being known to children. Because not all authors produce text on radical opinions on politics and religion. Some are just novel writers. Some are just children book writers. Why would they want to be protected from public backlash? Rather, they would want them to be known and receive fame and recognition. Not only that, we value the burden of authors writing books, especially those publishing academic texts, need to be able to deliver accurate information. And Side opposition's case clearly talks about how people won't have it. Side government's case simply talks about how people on government won't have an incentive. Yes, they can reveal their name in social media and other various platforms, but use pseudonyms when they want to remove this burden. But the logic here is that the author would rarely want to remove their element, giving them income and revenue, recognition and fame, but they are allowed to. But we really don't see why they would want to do this in the first place when the situation is that not all authors, nor a very small fraction of authors produce text on radical opinions, and they really won't want protection if there are people who produce books on children's fantasies, children's dreams, and mythology, and things like that. And so I'm directly moving on to my second class, choice versus enforcement. If they are allowed to choose and given the option to select, We think if they are given the option to choose between a pseudonym or a real name, especially for something they want credit for, they want fame, they want recognition, they want revenue, then they'd obviously choose a real name. So it's very unlikely on side opposition that professors and publishers who want recognition would use pseudonyms and publish fake information when they themselves are educators, and they would be very against the fact that the market is full of fake information books. So we don't really understand their point on how professors would have no incentive, and rather on side opposition, so we would have an overflowing amount of professors who publish fake information. But not only that, they should have a choice. If they want to avoid the consequences of public backlash when they are providing controversial opinions, they have two alternatives. They can use SNS as a platform for freedom of opinion, or they can use pseudonyms. But on this case, we don't really see any incentives, so we really rather disregard side of the government's case. But not only that, enforcement. It provides little to no incentive on nor benefit on side government, because if we enforce them and infringe on the other's private right to choose, we think it's extremely difficult for some authors or publishers who want acknowledgement to accept government's role. What if they want their name to be revealed to the world? Not all books are about radical opinions on politics and religion, but not only that, we rather think this infringes on the author's right. They claim they protect privacy, but why would a novel writer want privacy? Why would a child's book author want privacy? And even if they do, a very small fraction of them want. If they're talking about dinosaurs and rainbows and children's fantasies, they really wouldn't want protection, because there's A, no public backlash to be received by them, but B, also no incentive for them to continue to publish books. We think it's extremely strategic on side opposition, Honorable Junior, that you give us the win, because at the end of the day, we prevailed to the fact that authors all have an incentive not only to be recognized and receive fame and revenue, but also under this situation that side's government's case has been wholly developed under one circumstance, that all authors will publish radical opinions on politics and religion, and they all want protection and shielding from the public. But we really think this applies to a minority of the case and only benefits a minority of the authors who were. Why would a child book want to have privacy? Why would a Disney story writer want privacy? Why would a fantasy book writer want privacy? They want to get famous, Judge. Now that these people cannot get fame, we say that they have no incentive to write these books, right? Judge, main flaws in today's debate. A, that the government that only runs their case on a simple assumption that we limit the people's freedom to use pseudonymous names. B, how the government that is literally making the society where books are similar to social media. This is a clear distinction, Judge. And C, when these people write books to talk about their achievements and their research, they lose incentive. And D, they somehow believe that books writers don't earn a lot of money, which is truly nonsense, looking at J.K. Rowling. Again, team government cannot provide a clear counterfactual nor model that illustrates the world. It only talks about impact, Judge. There's no likelihood. Honorable Adjudicator, we think that this debate should credit team's government impact when there was no logical mechanism on how it actually made sense. Directly in the line of Thielo's rebuttals, we think that there is more fake information on team government's world because authors would want attention using their main names or does not have to care about fake information. Now they don't have any accountability on the situation. But most importantly, let me create a comparison between the importance of pseudonyms and the names to accountability. A, we cannot fully understand how there is a sudden rich and poor gap when people use their real names. Let me bite the bullet. Even if saying this is true, but even if it is, we say that it's not always a bad thing. It acts as an incentive to creating better books, better accurate, better credible sources of book, right? People read books if they're fun or interesting. And for facts, right? People read books not because of the name value. The idea of privacy. We say that secondly, we say that people can choose to use pseudonyms, but it's just that we don't encourage people using pseudonyms. The reason why social media can only support the idea of anonymity is because they're immediate check and balance. When going against social norms, we have social media, Judge. We all have already proved to you why only social media can support this, considering that there's direct engagement and immediate response on what they post. Active check and balance, while books are really hard to engage on, there's no sort of communication without book reviews, right? Except for book reviews. Books are made to and used for a credible and accurate source of information. This means that the books are clearly different for social media. Judge, different literary devices have different purposes, and clearly books are not for controversies or being anonymous. C, the concern is safety. We think that if the authors are truly afraid of privacy, they can use options of social media, a free platform anonymity. We don't limit the idea of anonymity. So even if we bite the bullet and say that there's very little or small quantity of people would want to get their names or receive minimal exposure to the public and given a shield for exposure and engagement in the public, they can use pseudonyms. We don't block this. D, the diversity of books. We think that it's not a mutually exclusive point for the government. We have all sorts of books just so that we are able to gain more credible information. The governments I failed to prove today on how they will be ensuring credible information when people do not have the accountability, right? And looking at their case sounds like it sounds like governments cannot ensure the benefits when their case acts like only books are published and in the public are ones that are radical opinions and politics and regions. Honorable adjudicator, at the end of the day, it is a team operation which fulfills the burden of which is why we prevail at a large point margin. Therefore, so proud to oppose. Thank you.
So, Mr. Speaker, the opposition takes on a radical stance that authors should not be presenting their radical stances in the liturgical world, right? But because of people like the opposition side, countries can't achieve widespread nutritious political discourse, right? Because we've mentioned from the get-go that the opinions against radical views creates a chilling effect in which you aren't sure what is socially accepted or not. Therefore, you just don't write anything because you're afraid of the social pressure, right? We've been pushing also from the get-go that we believe that we gift and send it to write better because you know that you get equal chances to succeed from the beginning, right? Still no response from the opposition here, lack of engagement. Before my two issues, let me just clarify. I already preempted the point of false information in my PM speech. There's such a thing as a publishing company, right? A company that publishes that can build a reputation on, oh, I know this company, I don't. And you can do things like that, okay? So two issues here. First, on the actual quality of discourse that this will create. When the opposition deputy comes up to the podium and talks about like radical ideologies and like Hitler writing a book, right? We say that this is the worst case scenario because that's the same thing about Hitler and stuff, right? This is total nonsense from the opposition bench because this was like 100 years ago, okay? In conclusion, there are no exclusive benefits from their side on the quality of discourse. Even if we say that their rebuttals against ours are valid, they don't have any benefits either. So the best case scenario for the opposition is a complete deadlock. We flipped two arguments from our whip speech. Firstly, that we support both freedom of choice and the social contract, and we already proved on our side already achieves the freedom of choice, okay? Secondly, that we flip the media stance, that it's actually worse in their stance for media because it's going to make their stance worse as mentioned in our whip speech. Okay, second issue on incentive. We presented two incentives in this debate to make it organized. First, on the zero social pressure, that they can be free to write about whatever they want. Second, on how equal opportunities create a healthier environment so that people get incentivized to write their hardest, okay? They didn't rebut to our second incentive on equal opportunities, and it is the fact that there's no social pressure, as I've already said from the get-go in my PM speech, that they talk about how we didn't have an incentive because they don't get famous, but according to the opposition's logic, when you publish one good book, you can actually build up a reputation, right? So this doesn't stand at all. Massive contradiction from the opposition side. We also proved to you in our whip speech that people will have enough incentive and can be successful with pseudonyms. In addition, the reply speaker of opposition just said a few minutes ago that a social economic gap increasing is a good thing, and this doesn't make any sense, Mr. Speaker. In addition, they just said that they won't block the use of pseudonyms in social media. This is a parallel example, and based on that, they just agreed to the motion, Mr. Speaker. Okay, so we think that this debate, we win the privacy clash. We additionally win the argument which was presented by opposition. There is less incentive in this debate, and we've successfully reasoned that anything opposition argues can be equally achieved on our stance. We think that the benefits we face in the privacy clash is on the social contract idea. We think that a large benefit in this debate, so we cannot lose this debate. So proud to oppose.